นี้ขี่มาเร็วกว่าเดิมอีกตอนนั้นขนาดอยู่ปั๊มบ้านจากวันนั้นน่ะมาถึงเนี้ย1 ชั่วโมงครึ่งคันที่แล้วอ่ะคันนี้ไอ้นี่อ๋อไอ้คันที่แล้วมันรวมซื้อทองด้วยก็เลยเป็น1 ชั่วโมงครึ่งคันนี้1 ชั่วโมงเราก็ซื้อทองประมาณอันนี้ประมาณอีกครึ่งชั่วโมงเดี๋ยวก็ให้คันหน้าเขาออกไปท่านมีแต่คนแต่งตัวดีๆเนาะเดี๋ยวเชื่อฟังอาจารย์มันเดี๋ยวเราเอาทางออกนี้ถ้าทางนู้นมันไปโผล่อ่ะเราต้องออกข้างหน้า
กระบะขับสีตัวจริงดุดันไม่เกรงใจใครแรงขุมพลังจัดเต็ม
You want to get better at speaking? You want to be heard? Then speak. Not someday. Not when you're ready. Now. Because confidence doesn't show up first. Action does. You act first, and confidence follows. That's how it works. You don't wait to feel bold. You get bold by doing what scares you. That's how people rise. That's how they become strong. That's how they grow into the version of themselves that commands attention. Not because they're loud, but because they've earned their voice. Speaking isn't about talent. It's about repetition. It's about effort. It's about being willing to sound awkward until you don't. The ones you admire, the ones who speak clearly, the ones who inspire rooms full of people, they all began the same way. Uncertain, shaky, full of doubt. But they didn't let that stop them. They spoke anyway. And because they did, they built something inside themselves no one could take away. The power to express, to lead, to influence. People don't remember perfect speakers. They remember honest ones, real ones. People who speak with conviction, with fire, with belief. That doesn't come from reading more. It comes from standing up and saying, here I am. This is my voice. This is what I believe. And I'm not backing down. You don't build confidence by avoiding your fear. You build it by walking through it. You say one sentence today. You speak up once. That's your win. And then you do it again tomorrow. Not because it's easy, but because staying silent is no longer an option. Because you're tired of shrinking in rooms you were meant to grow in. Because you're tired of walking away, wishing you'd spoken up. That's when it changes. You improve your speaking by practicing. Not in theory, in real life, in conversations, in moments when your voice wants to hide. You speak anyway. It doesn't have to be impressive. It just has to be real. You speak with your full presence. You speak with your body, your eyes, your heart. Because people feel that. They feel when it's coming from somewhere true. You can't fake that. And when it's real, it moves people. That's how you get better. You want to be more confident. Then stop waiting for someone to validate you. That's not confidence. That's dependency. Real confidence comes when you don't need applause, when you don't need everyone to agree, when you say what needs to be said because it matters to you, even if your voice shakes while saying it. That's power. And power is earned through repetition, through discomfort, through trial and correction. People think confidence is some magical trait others are born with. It's not. It's a muscle. And just like any muscle, if you don't use it, it stays weak. You build it by doing the thing over and over again. You build it by pushing your edges, not all at once, but one challenge at a time. That's the path. That's the work. You want to get better? Then speak in front of the mirror. Speak in front of a friend. Speak in your journal. Speak in your voice notes. Every day, you don't need a stage. You need a reason. And if your reason is strong enough, you'll find your voice. You'll fumble at first. Of course you will. That's part of it. But that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're learning. You're building. You're transforming. Every mistake is data. Every awkward pause is feedback. You study it. You adjust. You keep going. That's how you grow. Not by avoiding the discomfort, but by leaning into it. That's how confidence gets built. Inside the tension, not outside of it. There's no trick here. No secret formula. It's the same for everyone. You grow confident by showing up again and again, by committing to your progress. Not perfection, progress. That's what makes the difference. The willingness to try again. The willingness to sound uncertain. The willingness to look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. People wait for clarity before they speak, but clarity comes from speaking. You don't find your message in your mind. You find it in your voice. You speak it into existence. You shape your thoughts by putting them into words. You discover what matters to you by hearing yourself say it. That's where the breakthroughs happen. That's where the shift begins. You want to speak well, then stop performing. Start connecting. Start being real. Start listening. Start caring about the message more than your image. Confidence isn't about appearing impressive. It's about being present, being intentional, being fully there with what you say. That's what draws people in. Not the polish, not the perfection, the presence. Your voice matters, but you've got to believe that. You've got to own that. You've got to act on that belief before it feels real. That's the test. That's the price. And when you pay it, everything starts to shift. Your posture changes. Your tone changes. Your energy changes. Because you're no longer speaking from insecurity. You're speaking from alignment, from strength, from purpose. You build that strength by doing the small things. You say hello to a stranger. You speak up in the meeting. You share your idea. You ask the question. You start the conversation. Those are the reps. Those are the moments. That's the training. And it's that daily training that builds unshakable confidence over time. Not all at once, but one day at a time. One challenge at a time. Confidence isn't something you earn once. It's something you maintain. You maintain it by continuing to show up, by continuing to speak, even when you're nervous, even when it would be easier to stay quiet. You keep your confidence alive by keeping your word to yourself, by not hiding when things get uncomfortable, by standing firm in who you are, even when it would be easier to fold. This is the real work, not the stage lights, not the microphone, not the big moment, but the moments when no one's watching, when you're practicing, when you're stumbling, when you're refining. That's where it happens. That's where your voice is formed. That's where your message becomes unshakable. So speak. Speak now. Not when it's perfect. Not when it's polished. Now speak like it matters. Speak like you matter. Because you do. Because your voice can change lives. But only if you use it. So start using it. Start strengthening it. Start trusting it. Because no one else can do that part for you. You already have what it takes. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to uncover what's already in you. That clarity, that courage, that conviction. It's already there. You just need to act on it every day, in every conversation, in every decision to speak or stay silent. Choose to speak, even if your voice shakes, even if your heart races, even if you don't know how it will land. Say it anyway. That's how you break through. That's how you grow. That's how you stop waiting and start becoming. Becoming someone who owns their words, who trusts their voice, who isn't afraid to be seen, heard, and felt. Speak when it's uncomfortable. Speak when it's unpopular. Speak when it's easier to stay quiet, because that's when it matters most. That's when your courage gets tested. That's when your message carries the most weight. And if you can speak then, in the tension, in the resistance, in the fear, you can speak anywhere. You won't feel confident every time. That's normal. That's human. But you can speak anyway. And every time you do, you get a little stronger, a little clearer, a little more grounded in your voice. That's the real win. That's what builds something that lasts. Not just temporary hype, but real steady, earned confidence. It's not about being perfect. It's about being committed. Committed to the growth. Committed to the process. Committed to speaking your truth, even when it's hard. That's where the power is. That's where the power is. That's where the transformation begins. When you stop waiting. When you start doing. When you decide that your voice is worth hearing. Not because it's flawless, but because it's yours. And once you believe that, you stop needing anyone else to believe it first. You become your own source of confidence, your own source of power. And from that place, everything changes. When you stop tying your worth to how well you speak, you free yourself to actually grow. Because growth needs space. It needs room to fail. It needs the freedom to sound unsure for a while. But what happens is, most people try to sound good instead of being real. They try to avoid mistakes instead of learning from them. And that's why they stay stuck. Because they're trying to protect their image instead of building their strength. You don't become a powerful speaker by trying to be impressive. You become powerful by being truthful. People are moved by what's real, not what's polished, not what's scripted. They want to feel something. They want to hear something that matters. And that doesn't come from trying to be perfect. It comes from being fully present with your message. If you want to speak well, start by listening. Listen to how people feel. Listen to what they care about. Listen to yourself when you speak. Not just the words, but the emotion behind them. When you speak from that place, people listen. Not because you've got the best vocabulary, but because you're saying something they can feel, something they can trust. Confidence doesn't scream. It doesn't try to overpower the room. Real confidence is quiet, steady, grounded. It speaks with calm intensity. It doesn't need to dominate. It just needs to be heard. And when you carry that energy, people lean in. They listen more closely because they can feel that you mean what you say. You build that energy by knowing who you are. That's where the real work is. The stronger your sense of self, the clearer your words become. The more anchored you are in your values, the easier it is to speak with conviction. And the more you trust yourself, the less you care about getting everyone's approval. That's when speaking becomes powerful. When it's no longer about impressing others, but about expressing what you know is true. When it's no longer about performing, but about connecting. And that kind of connection doesn't require a stage. It can happen anywhere. In a conversation, in a meeting, in a moment where someone needs to hear the truth. Your voice matters in all of it. You don't need to sound like someone else. You don't need to copy what others are doing. You need to sound like you. Your cadence, your tone, your rhythm, your way of expressing. That's what people remember. That's what builds trust. So stop trying to adjust your voice to fit in and start strengthening your voice so it stands out. Not because it's louder, but because it's authentic. And yes, there will be times you feel like you're not ready. Times when your heart pounds before you speak. Times when your mind races. That's normal. But those moments are where your strength is forged. When you step forward, despite the nerves. When you speak, despite the doubt. That's what makes the difference. Not talent, courage. You want to speak better, then raise your standards. Don't just aim to speak. Aim to communicate. Aim to land your message. Aim to be understood. Every sentence should serve a purpose. Every word should move someone closer to clarity. Speak like what you're saying could change a life. Because if you believe it, it just might. That belief is everything. When you believe in your words, your body changes. Your posture rises. Your tone steadies. Your energy shifts. That's what people respond to, not just your message, your presence. So show up with everything you've got, even if it's messy, even if you're learning, show up fully. Because when you do that consistently, day by day, your entire identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who struggles with speaking. You start seeing yourself as someone who expresses clearly, someone who owns the room, someone who speaks because they have something worth saying, not something rehearsed, but something real. And once you've built that identity, everything else follows. The way people respond to you changes. The opportunities you attract change. The way you move through the world changes. Not because you're pretending to be someone else, but because you finally let yourself become who you've always had the potential to be. Speaking isn't just about words, it's about presence. It's about courage. It's about being willing to take space in a world that taught you to stay small. And when you finally stop shrinking, when you stand up and speak with strength, that's when your life starts expanding. So don't wait. Speak now. Even if it's not perfect, especially if it's not perfect. Because every word you speak from the heart is one step closer to becoming the person you were meant to be. And once you start walking that path, there's no turning back. You'll stumble. You'll grow. You'll get better. But only if you keep speaking. Only if you stay in the game. Only if you stop trying to get it right and start focusing on getting it real. That's where the power is. That's where your voice becomes unshakable. Because when you build confidence from experience, not opinions, when you strengthen your voice through daily effort, not performance, when you speak because it matters, not because it's safe, then you don't just become a better speaker. You become a better human, clearer, braver, stronger, and you carry that strength into every area of your life. That's the real goal. Not just to speak well, but to live well, to lead well, to show others what it looks like to rise, to be a living example of what's possible when you stop waiting and start speaking. So speak and keep speaking until the fear fades, until your message is clear, until your confidence is steady, until your voice changes. Not just your life, but the lives of those around you. Because the truth is, your voice is one of your greatest tools. Not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. No one else has your story. No one else has lived your days, felt your pain, earned your strength. And if you don't speak it, who will? If you don't claim it, it stays locked inside you. And when truth stays locked, it starts to rot. It starts to eat at you. It turns into regret, into silence, into doubt. You were not born to stay silent. The first time you speak up, you may shake. Your hands might sweat. Your throat might tighten. Speak anyway, because every time you do, you take a piece of fear and crush it under your foot. You take a lie that says you're not ready and prove it wrong. You build proof. And that's how confidence is created. Not in your head, but through action. Confidence is earned by doing. It's not gifted by others. It's not given because someone claps for you. It's built when you show up, scared, uncertain, and still choose to speak. That's what makes the difference between people who stay stuck and people who grow. Those who grow are the ones who move forward, even when they feel unprepared. The truth is, you will never feel fully ready. If you wait for the nerves to leave, you'll wait forever. You don't outgrow nervousness. You grow stronger around it. You learn to speak while your heart races. You learn to breathe through the tension. And you learn that courage is not the absence of fear. It's action in the presence of it. So take the pressure off. You don't need to be a master today. You don't need to blow people away every time you speak. You just need to be honest. You just need to show up and say something that matters to you. That's the starting line. And if you can do that today, you're already winning. Look at the people you admire, the ones who move a room when they speak. They weren't born with it. They built it. Speech by speech, moment by moment, rejection after rejection. They weren't afraid to look awkward. They weren't scared to stumble. They were more committed to growth than they were to looking good. And that's the choice you face every day. You can avoid the risk and stay quiet, or you can take the risk and find your power. And that power doesn't just show up in speeches or interviews. It shows up in how you ask for what you want. It shows up in how you say no. It shows up in how you handle conflict, how you share an idea, how you lead a conversation. Speaking well is not just a skill. It's a way of carrying yourself in the world. And every time you choose honesty over perfection, every time you choose courage over comfort, you earn more of that power. You start to notice that people listen differently. Not because you're loud, not because you're flawless, but because there's something in your voice that tells them this person knows what they stand for. You want people to take you seriously? Then speak like you take yourself seriously. Speak like your ideas matter, like your experience matters, because it does. You've lived through things. You've seen life in a way that no one else has. And every part of it, the wins, the losses, the scars, they gave you something worth saying. But don't try to deliver it like someone else would. Speak in your voice, the real one. Not the one you think sounds smart. The one that sounds like you. Because when you do that, you give people permission to do the same. When you're authentic, it wakes others up. It shows them they can be real too. And that's what great speakers do. They don't just deliver messages, they unlock people. You might think you're not ready because you don't have enough knowledge. But people don't connect to knowledge. They connect to clarity. They don't need your facts. They need your focus. They need to feel like you know what you're saying and that you believe it. That kind of clarity cuts through doubt. That kind of clarity sticks. And that clarity is built in the dark. It's built when no one is watching. When you practice out loud even when it feels weird. When you record yourself and cringe at the sound of your voice, but do it again anyway. When you look in the mirror and speak your thoughts clearly, not to perform, but to prepare. That's where the edge is sharpened. No one sees the hours. They only see the moment. But if you haven't put in the hours, the moment will expose you. You want to feel strong when it counts. Then train when it doesn't. Train when it's quiet. Train when no one's asking you to. That's the difference between those who rise and those who stay waiting for permission. And when the moment comes, because it will, and someone asks for your opinion, your story, your truth, you'll be ready. Not because you memorized the perfect script, but because you've been living it, because you've done the work, because your words aren't empty, they're earned. Confidence is not about speaking louder than others. It's about speaking in a way that leaves no doubt. When you speak with that kind of certainty, you don't need volume, you don't need applause, you just need presence. And presence is built by knowing what matters to you and standing inside it with both feet. So ask yourself, what matters to you? What do you want your voice to stand for? If you don't know, then your words will always feel shaky. You've got to define your values, define your mission, and then line up your voice with that mission. That's where alignment lives. And when you're in alignment, everything flows differently. You'll notice the hesitation drops. You'll notice your pace steadies. You'll notice that your words land heavier, not because you're performing, but because you're speaking from the core. And when you speak from the core, it's hard for anyone to ignore you. They may not agree, but they will feel it. You are not invisible. You are not voiceless, but you've got to be the one to prove that to yourself every day. And the way you do it is by showing up and speaking up, not just when it's easy, especially when it's not. Your voice will shake less the more you use it. Your fear will shrink the more you face it, and your confidence will grow the more you step into it. Not overnight, but day by day, choice by choice, word by word. This is how you improve your speaking. This is how you build your confidence. Not by waiting, not by wishing, but by working. Working on yourself, working on your clarity, working on your courage, every single day. And when you make that decision to work on yourself, when you commit to speaking with more clarity, more truth, and more strength, everything in your life starts to shift. Not just your speaking, your relationships, your opportunities, your sense of direction. Because now, you're not hiding behind silence. You're stepping out in front of your life and saying, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is where I'm going. That's the kind of presence that draws people in. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're finally being real. People don't need more polished performers. They need more honest communicators. They need people who aren't afraid to say something meaningful, and you can be that person. But it starts with the decision to stop holding back. You don't need a stage to start. You don't need a microphone. You don't need a camera. You just need to speak. At the dinner table, at work, on a phone call, in a small group. Every chance you get, practice being clear. Practice being intentional. And practice being yourself. And don't expect every moment to go perfectly. It won't. You will say things you wish you could reword. You'll get stuck mid-sentence. You'll lose your place. That's normal. That's human. And the ones who grow the fastest are the ones who don't let that stop them. They adjust, they reflect, and they keep going. Because that's how growth works. You don't avoid mistakes. You learn from them. Every speaker who inspires you has been where you are. They've stood in front of people and forgotten their lines. They've gotten feedback that hurt. They've felt embarrassed, and they've pushed through it. They kept practicing. They kept sharpening their voice. And because of that, they got better. Not because they were fearless, but because they were relentless. Now it's your turn. Your turn to stop pretending your voice doesn't matter. Your turn to stop playing it safe Your turn to take the mic life keeps handing you, and finally say something that matters. But don't fall into the trap of thinking you need to be loud to be heard. You don't. You just need to speak with conviction. Speak like what you're saying has weight. Speak like your words carry value, because they do. You don't have to yell to make an impact. You just have to believe what you're saying. When belief is strong, your voice carries further. When belief is clear, people listen differently. And you build that belief by showing up, day after day, moment after moment, putting in the effort to be someone who speaks with intention. That means you don't waste words. You don't ramble. You don't talk just to talk. You speak with purpose. You make it count. And the more you do that, the more you'll notice people leaning in, because they can feel when someone means what they say. Don't aim to impress. Aim to connect. Don't try to sound smart. Try to be understood. Don't chase perfection. Chase realness. Because when you're real, people trust you. And trust is what turns words into impact. One of the most powerful ways to grow your confidence in speaking is to start helping others with your voice. Encourage someone. Stand up for someone. Speak truth when it's easier to stay quiet. The more you use your voice to lift